You know that feeling. The room shifts when you walk in, not because you said something wrong, not because you did anything offensive, but because your mere existence seems to disturb someone at a level they cannot articulate. They smile at everyone else. They laugh. They engage. But when their eyes land on you, something hardens. The warmth drains. The mask cracks just enough for you to see what lies beneath. Contempt without cause. Hatred without reason. And here's what makes it worse. You've tried. You've been kind. You've been professional. You've bent over backwards to understand what you could have possibly done to deserve this treatment. But the answer never comes. Because the truth is, you didn't do anything. This isn't about you. It never was. This is about what you represent to them. Your confidence reminds them of their cowardice. Your happiness illuminates their misery. Your success casts a shadow over their stagnation. You are not their enemy. You are their mirror. And they hate what they see. The ancient Stoics understood this with brutal clarity. Seneca wrote in his letters that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. But what he also understood, what most people today refuse to accept, is that some suffering is self-inflicted. Some people choose their misery. They cradle it, they feed it. And when someone like you walks into their life radiating the very qualities they've convinced themselves they cannot possess, the cognitive dissonance becomes unbearable. Modern neuroscience confirms what the philosophers knew 2,000 years ago. When we encounter someone who embodies traits we desire but feel we lack, our brain doesn't respond with admiration, it responds with threat detection. The amygdala fires. Cortisol floods the system. The same neurological pathways that activate when we face physical danger activate when we face psychological inadequacy. Your presence isn't just uncomfortable for them, it's painful. It's a reminder of every choice they didn't make, every risk they didn't take, every dream they abandoned. But society tells you to ignore it, to be the bigger person, to kill them with kindness. And that advice, well-intentioned as it may be, is fundamentally flawed, because you cannot logic someone out of an emotional position they didn't logic themselves into. You cannot kindness your way through someone else's insecurity. Their hatred isn't a misunderstanding that needs correction. It's a defense mechanism. And defense mechanisms don't respond to reason. Let me show you exactly how this manifests. There are 5 patterns of behavior that reveal when someone's dislike of you has nothing to do with you and everything to do with their internal warfare. The first pattern is selective hostility. Watch them in a group setting. Notice how they light up when others speak, how they lean in, how they laugh freely and engage openly with everyone around them. The room feels warm, connected, alive. But the moment you enter the conversation, something shifts. The energy changes, they become cold, distant. Their responses turn monosyllabic. The smile that came so easily for others vanishes when you're the one speaking. This isn't accidental. This is deliberate exclusion masquerading as preference. It's a power move designed to make you feel like you don't belong. Because if they can make you feel out of place, if they can make you question your right to occupy space in that room, then they've neutralized the threat you represent. They've created a hierarchy where you're beneath them, and that hierarchy soothes the insecurity gnawing at their core. The Greek philosophers had a term for this kind of petty cruelty: micropsychia, small-souledness, the inability to rise above one's own petty concerns and recognize the humanity in others. Aristotle contrasted this with megalospsychia, greatness of soul, the quality of those who are secure enough in themselves to be generous toward others. The person who treats you with selective hostility is operating from a place of profound smallness. They cannot afford to be generous with you because your presence costs them too much psychologically. The second pattern is the avoidance of eye contact. In group conversations, their gaze sweeps across everyone except you. When you speak, they suddenly find their phone fascinating, or they look past you, through you, anywhere but at you. This isn't shyness. This isn't social awkwardness. This is intentional invalidation. Eye contact is recognition. It's respect. It's the fundamental acknowledgement that the person in front of you exists and deserves to be seen. When someone consistently refuses to meet your eyes, they're refusing to grant you that basic human dignity. At a subconscious level, they're attempting to erase you from the social equation. Because if they don't see you, if they don't acknowledge you, then they don't have to confront what you make them feel. This behavior taps into something primal. The psychologist Edward T. Hall identified eye contact as one of the primary mechanisms of social bonding across cultures. When we make eye contact, oxytocin is released, creating feelings of trust and connection. By denying you eye contact, they're denying you access to that social bonding, keeping you at arm's length, maintaining the emotional distance they need to sustain their negative perception of you. The Stoic Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil." He understood that some people are so trapped in their own darkness that they cannot perceive the light in others. The person who refuses to look at you isn't seeing you clearly. They're projecting their own distorted self-image onto you. The third pattern is social invalidation of your ideas. You contribute to a conversation. You offer an idea, a solution, an observation. Silence. No response, no acknowledgement. The conversation moves on as if you never spoke. But minutes later, someone else says essentially the same thing, and suddenly it's brilliant. Suddenly it's worth discussing. The very people who ignored you when you said it are now praising the exact same concept from someone else's mouth. This is not coincidence. This is strategic erasure. They're denying you social credit, the currency of group dynamics. If they can make your contributions invisible, if they can prevent you from gaining recognition or influence within the group, then they maintain their position relative to you. Your ideas threaten them because good ideas come from competent people, and they cannot afford for you to be seen as competent. That would validate you. That would force them to confront the reality that their hatred is baseless. The French philosopher René Girard called this mimetic desire. We want what others want, and we resent those who possess what we desire. When your ideas are good, when they're valuable, you possess something they want: respect, recognition, social capital. By invalidating your ideas, they're attempting to devalue what you have so they don't have to feel the sting of not having it themselves. In ancient Athens, this kind of behavior was understood as a form of hubris, the arrogant disrespect that comes from believing oneself superior without cause. The Greeks knew that true wisdom required recognizing the value in all people, regardless of personal feelings. The person who invalidates your contributions is not wise. They're afraid that if they acknowledge your worth, they'll have to acknowledge their own lack. The fourth pattern is reputational sabotage through insinuation. They don't attack you directly. That would be too obvious, too risky. Instead, they plant seeds of doubt. In conversations you're not part of, they drop subtle criticisms. "I don't know. There's just something about them. They try too hard, don't you think? I can't quite put my finger on it, but something feels off." These statements are genius in their cruelty because they're unfalsifiable. There's no concrete accusation to defend against. There's no specific behavior they can point to. Just vague unease. Just suspicion. And suspicion spreads. Once they've planted that seed in someone else's mind, confirmation bias does the rest. Every neutral action you take gets filtered through that lens of doubt they've created. This is what the Romans called suggestio falsi, the suggestion of falsehood. It's a form of lying that doesn't require explicit lies. You simply imply, suggest, insinuate, and let others fill in the gaps with their own assumptions. It's a low-risk, high-reward tactic. If confronted, they can claim they were just sharing their feelings, just being honest about their impressions. But the damage is done. Your reputation has been tainted, Carl. Jung understood this mechanism deeply. He wrote about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge, the qualities we deny possessing, and how we project those qualities onto others. When someone engages in reputational sabotage, they're often projecting their own shadow onto you. The things they accuse you of, subtly or otherwise, are often the very things they fear are true about themselves. They call you calculating because they know how manipulative they are. They call you fake because they're the ones wearing a mask. The fifth pattern, the most revealing of all, is resentment at your success, a promotion, an achievement, a personal victory. The room celebrates, people congratulate you, genuinely happy for your win. But watch the one who hates you. Watch their face. The smile doesn't reach their eyes, their body language is rigid. Their congratulations, if they offer any, are hollow, forced, laced with barely concealed discomfort. Or they don't congratulate you at all, they go silent. Or worse, they minimize it. Well, you got lucky. It's not that impressive. Anyone could have done that. This is the clearest signal of all because it reveals the zero-sum mentality at the core of their worldview. They see life as a competition where your gain is their loss. Your light doesn't inspire them, it highlights their darkness. Your progress doesn't motivate them, it emphasizes their stagnation. Every step you take forward feels like a step they're falling behind. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche wrote extensively about resentment, a deep-seated resentment born from feelings of impotence and inferiority. It's the emotion of those who feel powerless to change their own circumstances, so they seek to drag others down instead. Nietzsche identified this as the hallmark of what he called slave morality. The morality of those who cannot create their own values, so they define themselves in opposition to others, particularly those who possess what they lack. Modern psychology has confirmed this observation. Studies in social comparison theory show that people who are unhappy with their own achievements are more likely to experience schadenfreude, joy at others' misfortunes, and more likely to minimize others' successes. It's a defense mechanism. If they can convince themselves that your success doesn't matter, that it was luck or circumstance rather than merit, then they don't have to confront the uncomfortable reality that maybe, just maybe, the difference between you and them is the choices you made and the work you put in. Now here's what ties all 5 patterns together. Here's the root cause that connects selective hostility, eye contact avoidance, social invalidation, reputational sabotage, and resentment of success. It's not about you. It was never about you. It's about the war they're fighting with themselves. Secure people don't have the time or energy for irrational hatred. Happy people don't spend their days finding reasons to dislike someone who's done nothing to them. Confident people don't need to tear others down to feel elevated. The person who treats you with inexplicable contempt is not operating from a place of strength. They're operating from a place of profound insecurity. You are a mirror, and mirrors are dangerous to those who hate what they see. When they look at you, they see everything they're not, everything they wish they were, everything they've convinced themselves they can never be. Your confidence reminds them of their self-doubt. Your peace reminds them of their internal chaos. Your success reminds them of their unfulfilled potential. And rather than use that discomfort as motivation, rather than let that mirror inspire them to change, they attack the mirror itself. This is what the Stoics called voluntary suffering. Epictetus taught that we are not disturbed by events themselves, but by our interpretation of events. The person who hates you without cause has chosen that interpretation. They've chosen to view you as a threat rather than an inspiration. They've chosen to let their insecurity fester rather than face it. They've chosen to project their self-hatred outward rather than address it inward. And here's the truth that will set you free. You cannot fix this. You cannot win them over. You cannot logic them into liking you or kindness them into acceptance. Because the problem isn't your behavior. The problem is their psychology. And you are not responsible for healing someone else's wounds, especially when they're actively using those wounds as weapons against you. So what do? First, stop trying to win them over. Stop going out of your way to be extra nice to them. Stop hoping that if you just prove yourself enough, they'll see you differently. They won't. Every attempt you make to gain their approval feeds their narrative that you're desperate, that you're trying too hard, that there's something off about you. Your efforts to connect become evidence for their bias. The game is rigged. The only way to win is to stop playing. Second, do not take it personally. And I know that's easier said than done, but it's critical. Their hatred is not about you. You are simply the screen onto which they're projecting their internal movie. If it wasn't you, it would be someone else. Anyone who possesses the qualities they lack would trigger the same response. You're not uniquely terrible. You're just uniquely triggering to their specific insecurities. Once you understand that, once you really internalize that their behavior is a reflection of their inner state and not a verdict on your worth, the sting diminishes. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a person perfected without trials." This is your friction. This is your trial. Not the challenge of winning them over, but the challenge of maintaining your center while someone actively tries to destabilize it. The challenge of not shrinking yourself to make someone else comfortable. The challenge of not letting their darkness dim your light. Third, and this is perhaps the most important, keep shining. Do not dim yourself to make them feel better. Do not downplay your achievements. Do not hide your confidence. Do not suppress your joy. Because the moment you do, they win. The moment you alter your authentic self to accommodate their insecurity, you've sacrificed your integrity on the altar of their ego. And that's a price too high to pay. Marcus Aurelius faced this constantly. As Emperor of Rome, he was surrounded by people who resented his power, his philosophy, his very existence. And he wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." He didn't shrink. He didn't retaliate. He remained true to his principles while others lost themselves in pettiness. That's the model. That's the path. Your existence is not an apology. You don't owe anyone your smallness. The fact that someone is uncomfortable with your light is their problem to solve, not yours to accommodate. You keep being competent. You keep being confident. You keep succeeding. And you let them sit with their discomfort, because that discomfort is the only thing that might eventually push them to change. Not your kindness, not your explanations, their own unbearable awareness of the gap between who they are and who they could be. There's a concept in Eastern philosophy called Wu Wei. Effortless action, flowing like water around obstacles rather than fighting against them. When you encounter someone who irrationally hates you, you don't fight them. You don't try to move them. You simply flow around them. You acknowledge they're there, you understand why they're there, and you continue on your path unimpeded. They can throw stones, they can try to block your way. But water always finds a path, and so will you. The question isn't whether they'll ever like you. The question is whether you'll let their inability to appreciate you diminish who you are. The question is whether you'll let someone else's internal warfare become your battle. The question is whether you'll sacrifice your authenticity for the comfort of someone who wouldn't do the same for you. Because here's what they're betting on. They're betting that you'll care more about their approval than your own integrity. They're betting that eventually the weight of their contempt will crush you into compliance. They're betting that you'll get tired of being the target and just diminish, become smaller, less threatening. less you. Don't give them that satisfaction. The Roman Stoics practiced an exercise called the view from above. They would imagine themselves from a cosmic perspective, seeing their problems as tiny dots in the vastness of existence. From that view, the opinion of one insecure person becomes laughably insignificant. Your life, your path, your purpose, these are shaped by your choices and your values, not by the petty resentments of those too afraid to confront their own limitations. Nietzsche wrote, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." But he also understood that some challenges don't make us stronger through struggle. They make us stronger through indifference, through the cultivation of a self so secure, so grounded that the winds of others' opinions cannot shake it. This person, this inexplicable hatred, this daily reminder that you're doing something right. That's your opportunity to build that unshakable foundation. Because let's be clear about what's really happening here. When someone hates you without cause, when they exhibit all 5 of these patterns, they're telling you something crucial. They're telling you that you possess something they want, something they don't believe they can have. And instead of being inspired by you, instead of seeing you as proof that those qualities are attainable, they've chosen a different path. They've chosen to see you as the enemy, to paint you as the problem, to make your light the source of their darkness. That's tragic. Genuinely tragic, because they're wasting their energy on hatred when they could be using it for growth. They're spending their days monitoring your success when they could be building their own. They're so focused on you that they've lost sight of themselves. In trying to diminish you, they've diminished themselves. But that tragedy is not yours to fix. You cannot save someone who's drowning if they're actively fighting the rescue. You cannot heal someone who's weaponizing their wounds. Your compassion, your empathy, your understanding of why they behave this way. These are admirable qualities, but they must be balanced with boundaries, with self-preservation, with the wisdom to know when to walk away. The Buddha taught about the second arrow. The first arrow is the unavoidable pain of life, in this case being disliked. The second arrow is the pain we inflict on ourselves by our reaction to the first arrow, obsessing over it, taking it personally, changing ourselves in response to it. You cannot control the first arrow. Someone will dislike you for reasons that have nothing to do with you. But the second arrow? That's entirely within your control. Do not shoot yourself with the second arrow. Do not internalize their narrative. Do not let their projection become your reality. Do not dim your light because someone else is afraid of the dark. There's a reason why this hurts so much. Humans are tribal creatures. We're hardwired to seek acceptance from our groups. Rejection triggers the same pain centers in the brain as physical injury. So when someone treats you with inexplicable contempt, your brain is essentially experiencing a wound. That's real, that's valid, but just because the pain is real doesn't mean the cause is legitimate. You have to override that tribal programming with conscious awareness. You have to remind yourself again and again that not all rejection is meaningful. Some rejection is just noise. The opinion of someone operating from insecurity has no more bearing on your worth than the opinion of someone operating from malice. It's distorted, it's unreliable. It tells you nothing about who you are and everything about where they are. The ancient cynics, philosophers who rejected social conventions and material pursuits, had a practice of intentionally courting rejection to build resilience. Diogenes would deliberately behave in ways that society disapproved of, not out of spite, but to prove to himself that external approval was unnecessary for inner peace. You don't have to go that far, but there's wisdom in the principle. Your peace cannot depend on the approval of others, especially others who are determined to withhold it. So what does victory look like in this situation? It's not them suddenly having an epiphany and apologizing. It's not them finally seeing your worth and treating you with respect. Those outcomes are outside your control and therefore not worth pursuing. Victory is you maintaining your integrity regardless of their behavior. Victory is you continuing to show up as your authentic self even when someone actively punishes you for it. Victory is you refusing to let their darkness poison your light. That's the standard, that's the measure of success. Not their transformation, but your constancy. Not their approval, but your approval of yourself. Not their recognition of your worth, but your unshakable knowledge of it. And maybe, just maybe, years from now, they'll look back and realize what they missed. They'll see what they lost by choosing hatred over curiosity, contempt over connection. They'll understand that you weren't the threat they imagined, but the mirror they needed. But even if they never realize it, even if they carry that resentment to their grave, it changes nothing about your path. Your worth was never contingent on their perception. Your light was never dependent on their ability to see it. The Stoics believed that the universe unfolds according to logos, a rational principle that governs all things. Part of that unfolding includes people who will test you, challenge you, and yes, hate you without reason. But they also believe that these challenges are not punishments, they're opportunities. Opportunities to practice virtue, to demonstrate resilience, to prove to yourself who you really are when nobody's watching or when the wrong people are watching. This person who hates you, they're giving you a gift even if they don't know it. They're giving you the chance to define yourself independently of external validation. They're forcing you to build a foundation of self-worth that doesn't crumble when someone disapproves. They're teaching you, through their negativity, the value of protecting your peace and the importance of choosing your battles. So let them hate. Let them stew in their resentment while you focus on your growth. Let them waste their energy monitoring your life while you invest yours in building something meaningful. Let them be the cautionary tale they're so determined to write while you write your own story. The question was never whether you could win them over. The question is whether you can thrive despite them, and the answer, if you choose it, is yes. Not because you're perfect, not because you're above being hurt, but because you understand something they don't, that the opinions of the insecure are the last place you should look for validation, that your worth is inherent, not earned through approval, that some battles are won not by fighting, but by refusing to show up to the arena. Walk away from the arena, not in defeat but in wisdom, not because you're weak but because you're strong enough to recognize a rigged game when you see one. Strong enough to value your peace over their perception. Strong enough to be yourself in a world that will sometimes punish you for it. That's not just survival. That's mastery, that's freedom, that's the kind of strength that doesn't need to prove itself because it knows its own worth. The kind of confidence that doesn't seek validation because it's already validated from within. The kind of peace that no external circumstance can disturb because it's rooted in something deeper than opinion or approval. They will continue to hate you. Let them. You will continue to grow. That's the difference. That's always been the difference. And in the end, that's all that matters.